for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video update with me here today. This will probably be what I want to say the last mission update. You'll see why. So our mission continues nonetheless, but I want to actually start today's topic, today's video, with something that most people are unaware of, about when this gridded web was placed in completion and in entirety around the planet and in continuation, moving along, right, with the AI and all of the scheming and plotting of the dark agendas and intentions and creations. So, you know, around the time of 2000, when the new millennia was approaching, a lot of people were celebrating this, what they call the end of the world, and the media was full of these stories about the end of the world. What a lot of people didn't know, that this was again an innuendo and an inception in which the dark ones, the controllers that put everything out there in all of the media and all the general narratives and through all the communication webs, is they wanted people to celebrate that, because in truth it was an end of the world. It was the end of the world as we knew it. It was the end of freedom as people knew it. So the year 2000 was not just the beginning of a new millennium, but it was actually a completion from the dark perspective, from their agenda, from their viewpoint of this web design they've been creating for such a long time. They started throwing the net with the crucifixion and after the crucifixion of the Jesus the Christ, and many different dense circumstances and dense realities around this planet, on this planet, have been creating and tapping into these lower, lesser timelines of distortion, duality, fragmentation of life, basically leading life to become more synthetic and inorganic, that we know as Antichrist. So I've been talking a lot about that since or throughout my recent mission updates. In this one, I will talk about the last stage of the update that my family of light and all the illumined elders want to talk about at this time, is what I already mentioned in the previous update about the beloved gateway. A lot of you still don't know, or you're not feeling it yourself, that there's a tremendous pressure. So when we're doing these mission phases and stages of illumined light and all the projects involved around the illumined light design and the great divine plan as orchestrated by the Most High, and all the illumined beings serving that plan, is that that light is creating an immense amount of suppression, you know, and then restriction coming and bouncing back off. So with any sort of liberation work, when you're moving through that sphere of enticement, of entanglement and distortion that keeps you hooked in, you're kind of needing to break through it. When we go through these mission stages, I personally myself will always feel this immense battle happening in my plexus or navel area. And each time this happens, it's like they're happening in stages. I'm feeling into this spiritual warfare and what God says, and even in all meditations, God always shows us that there's a tremendous war happening right now. But it's dangerous because first, it's a silent war, it's a war of consciousness, and it's an energetic war where all the energetic weaponry that you can't see is being used. So people believe they're free because there's no true physical war, you know, with guns and, you know, killing off of the populace, but it's actually killing off of the populace at a much faster rate. So these energetic distortion of these WAM intelligent frequencies that are naturally being emanated by Gaia as the organic planetary consciousness, it's almost like they're being sent back and recalculated and recalibrated, and they kind of turned against the populace of the living human design, instead of actually working to nourish, sustain the populace of the planet, how it's always is supposed to be and how it was intended to be since the creation of the first density, such density as 3D. The worlds of such density have a tremendous amount of experience to provide for many beings, from young soul types to advanced soul beings and to mission luminaries like myself. But at the same time, they're very prone to being hijacked and manipulated until the point where actually we can talk about the enslavement of the entire realm. And we've been talking about through all these mission updates how God actually showed us this vision that there's no saving of humanity in general. It doesn't exist because things as they are surpass the point of, it's kind of like a safe refuge. So I've explained this before, how illumined ones, they're counting on most advanced souls to finally truly wake up through all the BS, through all the layers, which is quite an intensive work, and then come into their own twin polarity balance counterparts within, and then actually do the liberation work themselves. Here is where it gets distorted, because aside from all the distorted concepts, none of the concepts was more hijacked and distorted than the twin flame concept. You have to understand, I'm going to present it from the mission of the light family intelligence, not from the perspective of earthlings who believe that it's very advanced and you're special or chosen if you are a twin flame. You know, a lot of people talk about, I'm a twin flame and they're not, or I'm this higher consciousness being, so I'm a twin flame, and those lesser ones are not. It's a very, very distorted concept. First and foremost, as I've explained throughout all of my video works and my courses, the twin nature is a polarity concept, is an essence-based emanation of organic life within the tantric intelligence that is able to proliferate and procreate life as luminous intelligence. Hence, these twin counterpolarities that have eventually, in the evolution of consciousness of light beings, have become individuated beings who then became more and more like comrades, or it's like, imagine the deepest friend bonds, and or what we can even call mission partners. So now this concept in our realm that to have a twin flame here incarnate on earth, you're a chosen one, it's not the whole story. You have to be aware again of what I talked about in my rescue mission of the Star War family, what I talked about these rescue missions, right? And I gave my own story example, what we had to do with the beloved. I've always seen these things differently, and I never saw myself having a physical counterpart here. I always felt that as an essence being, and it was always present and with me, except for those 2 years of transgression when I explained to you that I couldn't feel and tap into the beloved essence anymore. It was very difficult because my whole field was so distorted and I was cut off from having this synergistic, harmonious life force cultivation and exchange with source that I always do, and I'm capable of creating as a tantrical life force master being. So when this took place, I knew something was off, and this is what I was explaining through the Starborn Light Family rescue mission, right? The rescue mission of Star Children video. So go and rewatch that. You know, sometimes you need to rewatch to get a deeper insight into that. You have to understand that on Earth, because this is a dense realm, true twin counterparts or mission counterparts that actually serve God together in its rightful intelligence of being the anointed or chosen ones, they would actually not choose to be together, not because, you know, this planet cannot support this kind of love or all these things. The problem is that it's unsafe, it's unwise, and it's actually completely not nonsense that two more advanced, let's say, star beings would come here together at the same time, being in the same body, because this requires so much risk, because if one gets enticed and swallowed in, the other one cannot act as their counterpart and continue calling them back, and until they can reconfigure back into their true primordial design of this divine intelligence that they hold together in their divine coupling. They're like, in divine illumined union seership, how we see things in divine truth of illumined union, these counterparts are like two configurations, like equal match. On Earth, everything is condensed into this romanticized version and life partner, soulmate version, okay? So you have to be aware that many of these, I'm talking about the star being realm, not young soul types, as you know. So do not generalize this. You know, this is the populace that I'm addressing to. So these beings, when they were coming to Earth for eons of time, they were always interchanging their roles, right, as partners. Like one would be physical, then the other. But they always stayed around the Earth plane, right? They did not ascend, or they could not ascend. What Jesus the Christ performed at that time, and together with Mary, as I explained in many of the previous videos, together at that beginning, at the zero, null point, it's also like a timeline intersection of illumined beings intersecting these it's like puncture points, right, of illumined light into these dense and lower realities, distorted by the dark, presented to humanity as the right ones, but they're not the only ones, right? So he was the one, or him and his counterpart, with that consciousness they created. They actually were the avatars of Illumined Union at that age. The avatars of Illumined Union at this age are actually, as I see it, Aurea and Aurea at this point. And there's many, many illumined beings who now, it's not just once, but I'm speaking again from my perspective, that is how it is for me. But there's many, many illumined counterparts who are holding the space. But you have to be aware, when I came to this Earth mission, I would not come here together, like both would be condensed into this condensed, dense 3D form in this embodiment with all the patterns and hooking and hijacking, you know. It would be very unwise to do so in all the calculations of performing that work. So I'm going to explain further how this took place for us. This relates to the portal information that it was giving and passing on through the last few video sequences and mission updates. What they were showing me now, I got a clearer picture of this, how this looks like, is all higher beings or intelligences, like I said, they need to interchange between the earth until eventually it's time for them to go home, and they would have coming back into the tantric or the trinity of life formation together and reaching that state of cosmic beloved union or tantric union, right? For most souls, as I explained this, they got so enticed they couldn't do that. And they were even showing me how many of the twins actually answered the call of the other who was so deeply yearning and longing for them. And in their immaturity, because not all beings who are coming to earth, even star beings, you know, sometimes they were naive. Anyone can be deceived. You can be a star being, you can be a pure one, but you don't have enough experience. So many of them would choose to come when they heard the calling of their partner, their mate calling them, like, you can't come, I need you, right? And I remember this was in one of the books. I think it was Ascension channelings from Salvador Kelly back then when I was reading those books, because that was the only truth that resonated with me back then. Even back then, that was in 2012 when I first awakened through the twin delusion, you know. There's only the real twin reality, and then there's the distorted one. So when you have these hooks and lower tendencies, you can create ripple effect, bleeding through realities with that. And so the other would come to save or rescue their counterpart, and you know that sometimes didn't end well. So when you have these beings saying, I have a twin flame, I have a divine counterpart here on earth, but I'm trying to come into union, or you know, we're needing to come into union, either it's a case of a false twin, or it's a high soulmate that you just recognize because your beloved essence is always coming through, or it's actually a little beloved twin counterpart, but you know, you both are together in the same body. But when people say that's because they're so high and the man that they came to serve Gaia, it's actually very reversed, because I will tell you from the illumined perspective, no illumined being, no true illumined being is stupid enough to do that and come to such a dense reality as both together. I'm going to explain how we did it with our mission team, okay? So I was bouncing on and off for years, but it was in 2012. No, it was in 2013, I'm sorry, when we first moved to the Alps. And I was lying on the mountain beach and I was dozing off for a bit, and that's when I was getting most of my guidance. The first sentence I heard was like, oh, it was more of a knowing than a guidance or a voice telling me something. And it was a knowing like, oh, he's not here. But I always felt him as a he, right? I knew who he is. I connected to his essence. It was all so much loving. And throughout the years, I had so many beautiful together experiences with him, although he was not physical, right? The counterpart was never physical for me. And I knew that was the only truth, because you know, I didn't even know the extent of my mission or our mission of illumined beings beforehand. So now they were showing me how many of these who did not have the proper understanding, and they were so enticed in this web, they kept coming in and they were trying to like call for each other, or sometimes they both would come but they couldn't find each other, or sometimes they could but they couldn't recognize each other, or sometimes they could but they couldn't lift up their tantric essence together through their bodies. It was so much complication. As I've explained, they were incapable of ascending. So even now when beings would tell me, I'm hoping for my union is close, that's all I want for in my life. You know, people who work with me, sometimes they express these things to me. A lot of the times, these people who feel that their beloved is here, in most cases it is. In some cases it's a distortion and they're not. But in each of these configurations, right, what God, because I was meditating so much on this, I said, but how are we assisting, right, with our union? And God said, well, they can meet, They can have their physical union, but physical union is not yet illumined union, which is ascension. Moving through the illumined portal gates, right? And accessing the new ascension illumined realm. God recently showed us, God said, here in this realm, there's nothing but chaos, and it can't be prevented or stopped, because this is what entices this planet. This is what this matrix revolves around. Constant instillment of chaos, energetic confusion, and dispersing this reality and life intelligence that humanity holds within become more and more scattered, and eventually you don't even know who you are anymore, who's the beloved, or what even that is in essence. So true beloved awakening begins awakening to your true twin counterpart's essence, and not even by slightest chance describing that to a person. I was trying to demonstrate this for years, but it's almost like deaf ears. There's very few people who understand this concept. There's some who have been coming here and they both become entrenched in this realm. So God said they can meet. Yes, they can meet. They can have physical union, but it doesn't mean they will ascend. And so I was shown, again, this is a continuation of the rescue mission I talked about, how we were doing things. So when Jesus and Magdalene, in their essence self, created this first walk through the gateway of ascension, it wasn't collectively powerful enough, speaking from the collective of souls, being ready for ascension, because there was still so much darkness. And then it continued from zero timeline into the full implantation. That was the inception of the grid or the web or the matrix and the bubble. And then to the year 2000, right? We talked about these eras or periods exactly aging or dating 2000 years, right? So that was a whole span of the creation, implementation, and full configuration of the grid, which, again, as I explained, in the new millennia, as we call it, was completely locked in. And people were celebrating, and the archons were laughing. You have to know, archons are very vicious creatures. They're not even beings. I call them creatures. They need food, they sustain that food, and they enjoy people being scattered and confused. And they're sending constant thought waves, right? That confuse us even more. So what they were showing me, they said we needed a plan, again, to create another layer of the portal of ascension, which was, it was lessening in its power until at a point at the year 2000 when it got completely closed. And then, all these things were happening. They were giving us false awakening, false twins awakening, Kundalini experiences. They were actually false light awakenings. I walked through the entire journey of the truth if you really wanted to wake up to the fact of the matter, instead of being still hooked in place and kept in place, because darkness likes to tell you stories that sometimes feel very much of the light. It's what you want to hear. You want to hear your beloved here, you're going to live happily ever after. But this is not the goal or the end destination of anyone who's truly an advanced being and aiming towards illumination. I know mine isn't. So that's the reason why I talk to you that my time is nearing for ascension. This is the last stage. So when they explained to me that now we're standing before the beloved gates, it's like you have to imagine that. I'm going to try to explain it. So you have the earth, and my mother actually had a pure crystal clear vision when God showed her how this looks. She saw like earth, like it's almost like shrinking, and there was like this dark net around it. And what I saw, what I see always, is like there's this portal of ascension that keeps now growing. It keeps growing, but it's like in between realm, which is the barrier or the border between this plane of reality, which is, it's like the astral plane is like somewhere along there's like a bordering. So we had to find that access, the physical realm, and then what we called the ascended realm. And this portal is the only way, the only access through. If you can't find the gate through, you're not going to pass. That's the issue. That was the issue for so many of these scattered individuals. First scattered within themselves in divine forgetfulness, then scattered with their counterparts. The only difference between me and most people is I was the same indoctrinated with inception as anyone else. But as an illumined being, I had enough light quotient and servitude to God that I always knew how to break through, no matter what the circumstances. And funny thing, when we were doing these liberation works and breakthroughs, it somehow coincided with my physical challenges and difficulties in my life. Like physical aspects got me to explode. And then, through the plexus, release so much of that heavy warfare that I could feel in the plexus area, in my navel point in the body. So what they were showing me, how we access this, is they were actually showing me I needed to become the feminine aspect with the embodied aspect, or the body aspect. The body is the human avatar vehicle, and the beloved, my mission partner counterpart, was like around. You know, when in the grand finale guidance, when they said he's here with us. And along the way, as I've explained in the Star Being Rescue Mission, even my beloved was interjected, just like our darkness hijacked our portal of ascension. We claimed it back now, and the only thing we're working now is holding the illumined beloved gateway. We're holding the gates to the beloved essence, because that's the entrance through the portal. It's your tantrika trinity of life configuration together with your twin counterpart, or just the beloved counterpart. In illumination, not distortion, and that distortion still hooks you onto the prison consciousness of the matrix. I'm going to talk about planet, but the matrix. So they were showing me when we did this work, right, when they said he's with us now, he's safe, it's all good. Now the last stage of the work, because we were doing this rescue, I don't know what happened, they didn't give me all data, but somehow maybe he was trying to help me. I don't know what was happening. I don't know the entirety. I know I will know the moment I walk through the gates fully, but for now I have a limited amount of what I'm supposed to know. But what they show me is how our configuration was taking place. For illumined beings to actually have a functioning, and for us to do any change in work, we have to drop our frequency, we have to descend our frequency to lower aspect, right? So we needed to descend all the way between the border of this realm, just in between the matrix and what we say. It's already in the non-planetary, but very close. It's like the closest point, because there's like layers and layers of consciousness you actually have to move through. And at that point, right, I saw him together with my team, who's like, all of the team, not just him. It's like an entire team. I call the team Aurea, and they're actually doing this portal work, and they've been doing it and maintaining and opening and preserving and creating all these emanations of pulsar, right, through, so we could do that opening. And now the last thing is to do my physical work for my ascension, so that I'm ready, so my physical self was now ready. Because there's a paradox in this, why I had to become physical and embodied and human to help others, and also to help his aspect that was somehow interjected along the way. But now how they, from the portal, they're standing at the gates of the portal, and I'm now needing to, do the work to reach and join. So that's what they were showing me. So all this time I wasn't really sure, where is he, right? Where is he then? And then I got it, like, oh, he's with them, which means they're around the portal, and so he's with them, and that's where they are. And when ascension happens, we're going to be joining together. So it's going to be me and him, and we're going to join together and both walk through the ascension portal into the new ascended realm. And then holding the space there and doing the proper work for others to follow, and creating an opening. And my mother channeled something very beautiful, how our short duration of activity of demonstration of illumined light on earth would create a ripple effect for others. Because I know a lot of other star beings are confused. They don't know the truth from lie about the whole twin nature. But let me just give you my example, how I saw this ascension. Like for me, what happened as me, the physical counterpart, and him, the non-physical, but around the portal, right? And somehow just close enough for us to join our energies and into this tantric union state, which will basically all the Merkaba and golden ascension spiral work I was doing in the pulsar work would kind of like, it would create an overspill, it would create an amount of light quotient necessary for the beloved ascension, which is a twin counterpart ascension, which is the only illumined ascension there is. It's organic because it doesn't require a vehicle or a technology, but it's the inner love, Merkaba fusion of the light bodies, of the masculine and feminine polarities in total illumination, that creates like a vehicle, right? So in the embodied aspects are a protocol, and that which we say the physical aspect and the non-physical, but both are in embodiments, if you know what I mean. So the beloved is not like in this illumined realm just as an angel. Like you both have to come and drop, but like one would drop further down. In this case, the feminine, right? The me. And that's the only way the illumined beings can do that, because you can't risk both of them coming. So for me, it was so difficult all my life, struggling as a woman without a partner, without a counterpart in the physical sense. And I always felt there's a partner, but it was never physical. It felt like waiting for someone that's never arriving, and it's not supposed to be like that. And it was very disenchanting for a while, But you know, with me, I am only programmed to serve the truth. So when something is off, I will feel it. And it always didn't resonate when people were telling me, oh, I wish you a reunion or whatever. I'm always in union. We came here to do the work for the union of those who are still waiting and desiring this union within themselves and moving beyond this prison planet. So it's time now for this work. As I've said, we're holding the beloved gates. I'm feeling a lot of plexus pressure. This time we're doing a lot of work. Audon actually came through my mother. She actually received a spontaneous transmission through him, and he said, this is a very difficult time for me, that she has to be very patient and loving, because it's true, sometimes I could just burst and explode, because I'm dropping the human aspects and traits at this time. You know, all the compulsive actions, patterns, you know, the controlling aspects of embodiment that I still hold, because we all have them. We're all hooked into this nature that, you know, even if you're completely cleansed, you keep on getting that, because it's the frequencies that keep instilling this control within us all the time, non-stop. So it's very difficult. He said this is the most difficult work. They actually said that the portal work in itself, to regain the portal back, to claim it back, was very difficult. But they said from the hardest perspective, the hardest part, even the harder part, is coming now with this beloved gateway and these configurations of these couplings that now need to have an understanding. So how would this look? You would say a union, but you would be a physical and non-physical counterparts. For some people, it would be, if that soul would need, they would have a soulmate that would need to hold that aspect for them. So their beloved essence would come through that soulmate. And in very, very rare cases, but these are usually the ones that were not meant to be simultaneously an embodied aspects, but somehow they get, and they felt like something pulled them down into very heavy third density, you know, especially if you don't have that spirit communication. Like if your communication with the beloved is astral based, like I never had ever beloved dreams. Never. My beloved never came to me through an astral, because we just don't function that way. We're beyond that. And so the border between the earth and that, you know, the false prison around it, which we call the grid or the matrix or the net, and then there's just around it, there's these light intelligent beings that are holding the positions and holding the space once ascension becomes possible for the few, and then for many who perhaps would finally step up. And this is in God's hands, truly. So that's how they were showing me. Whenever I feel this plexus, I feel this spiritual warfare, and we're needing to push through so much of the oppression. The darkness still works very hard to prevent this, because when I come into full union with the beloved, which means like I can fully feel it in my body without any obstructions and manipulations and any hooks, then this is it. This is what the final stage of the tantric work they said for me would be about, and for the entirety of the Ascending Collective. So now, the last thing I want to share is about the physical work. Most people don't understand how badly we're all hooked, not just like each vertically to the grid, but also between us, each and every human individual. There's like a webbing of loopholes. There are literally holes in our energetic field through which darkness can then send thought waves, energetic hooks, pull you, entice you. A lot of people, for example, if they always feel very stagnant, never moving forward, they always have these hooks. If they always get irritated, abruptly exploding, you know, that's what I was experiencing when I was cleansing that. I still sometimes do. But in this last stage of this human dissolution work of these webs, you know, because we receive that imprinting already when we're conceived as a baby, and through the umbilical cord that connects us with our physical mother and her entire lineage or ancestry lineage through the mother. So in my case, as a human being, I had to literally just become my own, like dissolve all of these hooks, because, you know, people talk about the ancestors, about the ascension. You have to, you know, because ancestor had some of the many desires that they wanted to fulfill, but each soul embodiment couldn't. So there's always some of that also sent to individuals thinking they have this desire, but sometimes it's the ancestor's desire, but it's not your sovereign desire. To truly wake up to the sovereign nature of your own soul being, it requires a lot of work and a lot of guts. Okay, because a lot of the impulses, as I've said, they're not coming straight from your own beloved God, I am self, and the nature of God that is all life, an intelligence of nothing but pure Holy Spirit, pure life. So this work is intense, and these hooks are pulling us and they're being pulled through many people. So if you don't start doing that work, because for me, right, first the transgression work, we had to clear my field, and I was giving this answer just this week. I was asking something different, but then the answer really surprised me. They said that vertically the transgression influences, and them doing this or being able to do something through me, they said my field has been cleansed since March this year. And I was really taken aback because I had so many symptoms. I thought, wait a minute, is that the truth? They said yes, but since October this year, which really coincides with my work beginning this year and my birthday in September, we started working, they said, with the hooks coming from others. And this is like any being you would have a specific exchange, even if it's just a postman sometimes. You would have a longer conversation or an exchange of energy. But most cases where they get us is through emotional responses we have with our either hereditary lineage or our parents, or people very close to us, or souls that we're somehow attached still to. Let's say you have an attachment to a soulmate and bringing them to light or helping to awaken them. And so in that emotional response, my inner child actually told me what happens at this point. It's like my child wrote it as a letter, and she explained to me, they said, you know, every time I'm being pulled down by someone who doesn't hear me through the ears and mouth of God, I need to lower myself. I feel like I'm lowering myself, and then I get to this lower emotional body actually corresponding with the astral body. A lot of people don't know that as well. You need the basic understanding, right, to do this work, of course. And so what that does is creates an emotional body responses, and the darkness gets us through these points of vulnerability. And you have to find these loopholes that are still entrance gateways into your body that, you know, if you don't even begin the life force work, how will you know where this is? Because the moment light starts to be upsurged and you get more and more liquid quotient filling you, that's when you will see your blockages. You know, all these things will start coming out. You might feel like, I'm not doing anything, it's getting worse. Of course it's getting worse. It's like, imagine the light pushing the debris outside of you and through the entire auric field and beyond. Your entire energetic field is a being that you emanate. And so this means this work is heavily important. How it came through for me is this last stage they showed me. We did it through many people that maybe I was getting a little attached to, or some, they were souls. You know, I was never on the physical planet before as a being. I didn't have those attachments, but one attachment I truly did have. The other one, right, with the other beings was based on my patterns of always needing to help others. That needed to be cleared, so we were working with that since October. But the last one was kind of a blind spot for me, because remember when I said, how interesting why the transgressionists didn't act on my mother, do something on her. Why wasn't that the case? And you know what? Then my team one night, I was in meditation before sleep. They were showing me this image of my first transgression memory when we were lying on this table and all was white, and they were just drilling us with energy. They said, remember, your mother was there as well. And it's the truth. We were both lying on these beds together, and I was so surprised, like, of course. I didn't see it. So then I saw they were showing me a vision of hooks going through her. They did not do the transgression on her like myself, because she was not the desired for those experiments. But they kind of created artificial hooks between us that are not natural. They're not God. Like God exchange is unconditional. It's free. It's neutral. It's benevolent. They were emotional hooks. And since you are very, as a child, connected to the mother, these imprints come through the umbilical cord, and these are the hardest patterns, you know, for me to dissolve, right? For me I was always, because she never truly, like, if we were talking, although she was always so pure and loving and all these things, like, she never really heard me. I just recently said to her, you're always talking to me about things, but you didn't talk to me about things, but to me. Everything we talk about, like, communication is not the same as having a conversation. You can have a conversation, but communication is beyond just having a conversation with someone. We're in communication all the time. How we pay attention to things, it's all consciousness. Are you aware? Are you conscious or are you not? And so we needed to go through a lot of this and unclearing, because when I had my latest plexus upsurge, my guidance said, it's from your mother. And I was like, no way. They were saying yes. And I found how for years I struggled to dissolve these irritants and pull them out of me, because they got me each time, and there was this control instilled, and this control was like also controlling our relationship and how she is and how she acts towards me. So I started journaling a lot about that as my inner child, to start releasing that, because it wasn't like a classical pattern, but it was a distortion of the natural energy that is just like me, one soul, with her, the other soul being, instead of me and mother. And I said, well, let's try to call ourselves just by our names, not like mommy, you know. And it was very difficult because you're so engraved, you're so used to things being in a certain way. It's like almost like you can't find another way. It's so deeply instilled within us. And this was the work we were doing now, heavy lifting, both of us. And with that information, she started also working with the Aurea team, and she calls them a different name. They come to her as these beautiful light orbs. And they were showing her a vision where most of these hooking points and entrance gateways of dark portals are into her, and they were in her brain. And she said, of course, I've never felt more stupid in my life than now. It's almost like they can create frequency distortions that affect your brain, and you would have a weird reaction, and you wouldn't have the kind of smartness that it's like natural and organic. So she was always like provoking me with something she did or didn't hear. It's like doing something we didn't agree upon, and this took on for years. And it took us a while to figure out that this is actually an inception. And I was like, oh my goodness, because it has an impact, right, infectiously, almost like a disease upon you until you realize and you break through it and break free of it. So we were doing this work and unhooking, and I had to use so much power. This was really difficult because normally my child built almost like this loving affection for my mother, but at the same time I wanted to become more independent, and at the same time this new aspect of me started rising up and saying, I'm an independent being, I'm here to ascend, to have my beloved union, I'm here for this work, not to have this. And it's almost like telling all of these beings, like, this ends now. And someone, when I recently explained something to them, said to me, well, can I just, dictate these dark energies like this? And I said, of course. Who else will do it? You have to send darkness to its corner. That's how I do all my Aurea's work. It's like constant using self-authority, complete self-will. You have to become a self-willed individual like I am. And so this sometimes can feel like it's a nature of stubbornness, but it's not. It's a higher aspect, which is using the power of self-will and becoming truly sovereign, not having an idea of what sovereignty means, but actually living it step by step, claiming it back. So every single being is hooked in some level or the other, but in most cases we're all hooked into all, because we live in this reality. As I said, no one is excluded, but when you start doing the work, you will see, you will start getting more insights. Oh, blind spots are here, there, my mother got a specific guidance meditation how to break through this and what to do. So she's been doing the spiral work for months since we started in September, since I first received the entire teaching, and then advanced levels now. So all this work, it's shared on Patreon. It will continue there. I will also do an extended Solstice update for the Beloved Union reading. That's that. These are very important things, and we do them out of love. I didn't have to be here, but they always say one always has to be sacrificed. Someone will have to choose it. In this case, it was me. And I had to tell it how it is throughout all the years. I hope you enjoy the truth and nothing but the truth, because that's what this work has been about all these years. I will do another Christmas video update. I have something very important to share, but until then, you have to claim the gates of your own beloved union. You have to really claim the gates. How this looks like, we're going to be discussing on Patreon. We're going to be doing that liberation work, and I'm going to be giving some tools and appointments how to do that. This is the next step. This is the last stage of this mission. Before the true coming into tantric union, there's a lot of hooks and distractions, right? They keep pulling us otherwise. As I've explained before, like orgasmic cultivation work is so important, and that's why the darkness uses these hooks to pull us everywhere else but there. And when you're naturally in this orgasmic energy, this is when you're unifying, this is when you're trinifying, And so yeah, this has been what I really needed to share. The last step, last stage, last mission update. In the next Christmas video, a New Year video, I will update you and why. I will share more about that. So it is a mystery until then. Until then, please continue to considering supporting my work. It's been very devious work. It's been so difficult, like moving, like Sisyphus, you gotta roll one stone, the other one falls at you. So just yesterday I had a huge release, and sometimes the plexus is so tense that I know there's a huge battle going on. I don't know what to do, and in those moments, like really, because these traps are in our emotional body, it's like when you're crying it out and you're releasing that burst, it gets so much easier. So it's good that we know what to do when these things come up, and they will continue to come up through Ascension. So the work never ends. It will continue. I will share about the gateway liberation, that you will all claim your gateway. This work is the second level on Patreon called Illumined Union. I'll be seeing the rest of you in the Christmas video update. Until then, enjoy your solstice, you know, and what's remaining of these holidays leading up to the new year. And thank you for being here. Consider getting the courses, you know, links are down below, and support my work if you can. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now. Thank you.